Hello again, my DIY loving friends. I'm Sarah, and this is Medicated Housewife DIY, where crafting and mental health come together. Today, we're diving into the magical world of Dollar Tree to transform your space into a high-end home without the high-end price tag. Who knew elegance could be so affordable? Well, we did. Didn't we? We're talking chic, we're talking stylish, and yes, we're even talking tumbling tower blocks. So stop wasting time and let's go DIY together. For this DIY, we are using a grand total of 90 of the natural color tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree for this project. I'm also going to be using the super glue wood glue, also from Dollar Tree, to attach the blocks together. So first, we are making a set of 3 blocks that are going to be glued side by side, as you can see here. Then I add 3 more blocks directly on top of those 3 blocks, and then another set of 3 directly on top of the second set to make this set of 9 blocks that are assembled in 3 rows of 3 groups of 3. And we're going to repeat this exact same thing 9 more times for a total of 10 sets of 9 blocks that are comprised of 30 sets of 3 blocks. I know that that sounds complicated. It's really not, I promise, until I have this nice stack of 10 sets of 9, and I'm going to set them all aside so that they fully dry. Also for this project, I'm using 2 of these wood rectangles that come in a pack from Dollar Tree. I'm using these wood coffee stir sticks. I got them on Amazon and I'll link them for you below, but you can also use the wood craft sticks from Dollar Tree to do this as well. I cut the sticks to fit around one of my wood rectangles to create a frame, and then I use some wood glue to attach the sticks to the rectangle to frame it in and to hide those ugly edges, because Dollar Tree doesn't really finish the edges on these wood shapes very nicely. We were all thinking it. I'm just the one saying it. I'm only going to frame in one of the wood rectangles, not both, because one of them is on the bottom of the project and the framed one, the one that's framed in, is going to be the top, which is going to be more visible in the finished project. I mixed up equal parts hot water and some cheap instant coffee to make a stain for me to use to stain all the wood pieces of this project. I like to use a coffee stain because it really enhances the warm wood tones while still giving a sheer finish and letting all the wood grain show through. I started by staining all 10 of my 9 block sets that have dried, staining both sides and both edges, as well as those very thirsty ends on the blocks. They really soak up the coffee, and I let them dry. In general, the coffee stain dries super quick because it's not a real stain, it's just coffee, and they smell really good too. That's just a bonus. Then I coffee stain that bottom rectangle, the one without the frame, on both sides and on those ugly unfinished edges. Before moving on to that top rectangle with the wood stir stick frame, I'm staining both sides of the rectangle and all of those stir stick framed sides as well. I'm giving it a full coverage of the coffee stain. I got these small wood letter tiles on Amazon, and I'll link them for you below. They're like the Scrabble tiles, but they're without a letter. You may be able to find something similar at Dollar Tree, like those Scrabble tape wood letter tiles. These are slightly smaller than 1 inch, and I grab 8 of them, and I'm going to glue 2 tiles together, one on top of another. I decided to use these as feet on the bottom of that bottom rectangle, just so that I could give the project a little bit of height. I also decided to stain the 4 wood tile feet with that same coffee stain that I used on the rest of the pieces of the project. So now each side of my project uses 5 of these 9 block sets that we made, and they're staggered in a zigzag pattern, one on top of another, as you can see right here in that first completed side that we've already done. To assemble the second side, like we did the first side, we place a pile of 3 blocks next to the bottom set. The 3 blocks are just spacers to support the side as it dries. They don't stay in the final project. I'm using 2 blocks, one flat and one on its side, as spacers to place the second row of blocks, as you can see right there. And I add glue to the open space on that first set of 9 blocks on the bottom, and add our second set of 9 blocks right on top of that, as you see me doing right here. Now we're going to repeat that same thing, but in the reverse direction. We're using the 3 spacers on the opposite side of that second set of blocks, and the 2 brown block spacers on the other side. We're placing the glue in the open space on that second set of blocks, and then we're going to be adding the third set of blocks right on top of that. This creates that staggered effect. We're going to continue that staggered zigzag placement on the remaining 2 sets of blocks, using up all of our 5 sets of blocks to complete this mirrored version of the first side. And with that, we have 2 completed sides of the project. To add those 4 wood tile feet to the bottom, I take that bottom unframed rectangle and I'm going to turn it upside down to the less attractive side and use some loose blocks in the corners just to try and evenly space out my 4 feet before using some wood glue to attach the 4 wood tile feet to those 4 corners of the bottom of the rectangle. And then I'm going to set the whole thing aside to dry. With both of those zigzag sides, they're now completely dry. I turn the bottom rectangle over with the feet on the bottom and use some more loose blocks and some small pencil markings to try and space out where to place my 2 zigzag sides so that they will be evenly placed on the rectangle. I didn't measure it. I just did my best eyeballing it. I'm using some E6000 glue for its super strong hold on the bottom of the 2 block sides. And then I place them down onto the top of that bottom rectangle, sliding and adjusting them until they look evenly placed on that rectangle. The E6000 takes a while to dry, so you have some wiggle room to move the pieces around and adjust their position to your liking. Then I add more E6000 to the tops of each side before placing my top framed in rectangle on top of the 2 sides, allowing it to dry overnight. And this is my gorgeous zigzag tumbling tower block platform riser. I think this thing is stunning. I mean, I really love it. And I love the natural wood finish on it. This DIY is a true example of Dollar Tree supplies creating an upscale piece of decor. All boxes checked here. This one's a keeper. For this DIY, we'll be using a total of 23 of the brown tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree. The blocks we love to hate, as well as the super glue wood glue, also from Dollar Tree. And here I'm using 12 of them and creating sets of 3 blocks glued side to side. I'll be making 4 of these 3 block sets that are all glued the exact same way. Now, the idea was to sand these 4 sets of 3 blocks, but I realized that these brown blocks were from a batch I used last week, and they are virtually unsandable. They just get muddy and they get dusty brown looking, so I stopped. I threw them out, and I remade my 4 sets of 3 blocks from a brand new box of blocks. Also, from that brand new box of blocks, I grabbed 12 of these loose blocks. Even though I only used 11 of them, and you'll see that later on, I sanded my 12 single blocks, and these sand down very nicely. As you can see, they just take on a lovely rustic distressed look, and I sand both sides and both edges on each of these 12 blocks. Then I sand the 4 sets of 3 blocks from that new box of blocks, the exact same way as the single blocks, giving them a nice rustic, distressed look that's just filled with character. I sand them on both sides and both edges of all 4 sets. I take my 4 sets of 3 and I assemble them into a square shape, standing up on their ends, and then use some wood glue to attach them that way. I have this cardboard tube from my recycling bin, and it's smaller and it's stronger than a paper towel roll. It's more like an aluminum foil roll or something like that. I use a box cutter to cut a piece off that's shorter than my single blocks are when they are standing up on their end. I take some wood glue and I attach 11 of those sanded single blocks standing up the tall way, and I'm gluing them all around that cardboard tube. I did try and use all 12 blocks, but you can see that the 12th block just didn't fit. It won't fit. So I ended up using just 11 blocks in total. Meanwhile, I have these 2 wood pencil cups. One is square, one is circular. I got them on Amazon and I'll link them for you below, but I believe you can find some wood square and circular cups that are similar at Dollar Tree, sometimes, depending on your Dollar Tree. I want to paint both cups with some Apple Barrel white gloss paint, which I will link for you below. And I started by painting the insides on both cups and also the top lips on both cups. Then I painted the outside of both cups, and I did 2 coats of the white gloss paint for full coverage, but I will say that even with 2 coats, both of my cups still had some of that natural wood grain coming through the paint. And I actually really liked the look of the wood grain showing through the white, so I stopped at 2 coats of paint. Once dry, I turned the square cup upside down and applied some E6000 glue for strength to the top edge of the square that we made out of 3 block sets. And I centered it on the bottom of the square wood cup and allowed that to dry overnight. I did the same thing with the circular cup and the cardboard tube with the attached blocks. And this is my set of tumbling tower block and wood planters, or you could also use them as cups for pencils, pens, or makeup or paintbrushes, anything really. But I'm loving the distressed brown blocks contrasting with the crisp, clean white, especially the way it looks when styled with greenery. Just a lovely neutral wood decor set that works with everyone's home decor style. For this DIY, I've got 2 of these glass tea light holders that come in a 4-pack from Dollar Tree, as well as 2 of these glass taper candle holders, which are a staple at Dollar Tree. I'm using Starbond super glue gel, which I will link for you below, but you could also use the super glue gel from Dollar Tree for this too. I attach the top of the candle holders to the bottom of the tea light holders, and I give them some time for that glue to set up. Once the glue is dry, I'm using this folk art white chalk paint, which I will link for you below, to paint my candlestick holder and tea light holder combos. And I did end up doing 2 to 3 coats of the chalk paint to fully cover all of that glass. I've got this bamboo cutting board from Dollar Tree, and I'm painting the cutting board with the same chalk paint as the candle holders, but I'm only doing 1 coat of paint, and it's kind of a quick, rough coat because I don't want totally opaque white coverage on the cutting board, but I do also paint all the edges on the board with the white paint as well. I've got some folk art antique wax, which I will link for you below, and a dry chip brush. And I'm going to dry brush a rough distress coat of wax on both of my candle holders, just lightly brushing on the wax and emphasizing all the raised edges that are on the glass design. I do the same technique on both of the candle holders from top to bottom. I use that same distress paint technique on the bamboo cutting board, painting the wax onto both sides of the board in rough, dry strokes. I also distressed the cutting board edges and tried to really emphasize the edges and the corners to age them, and also to give them some character and some dimension. Lastly, I applied some E6000 glue to the tops of the candle holders and centered the bottom of my cutting board on top of them, and I allowed the whole thing to dry overnight. And this is my very rustic and kind of farmhouse cutting board riser, made out of all Dollar Tree standard items. Just an impressive way to make a stylish, distressed style riser for under $5. That sounds like a win to me. And there you have it, my DIY loving friends. 3 Dollar Tree DIYs that scream high-end without breaking the bank. I hope you had as much fun as I did, turning those Dollar Tree finds into something fabulous. If you love these projects, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Medicated Housewife DIY for even more budget-friendly decor magic. Let me know in the comments if you have a favorite DIY or if you have a project idea you're dying to see me try. You know I love hearing from all of you. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, remember that together, we're making the world a more beautiful place, one DIY at a time.